How is buying a brand new home different than buying a used or existing home? Well, the short answer is completely different. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm with homes719.com based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And just had a conversation with a client a few moments ago about what are the differences between buying a new home versus an existing home. And it is completely different. Every part of the process is different. And, um, some buyers and sellers maybe will tell you, and especially the builder will tell you this, you don't need a realtor to buy a new build. In fact, the first time I bought a brand new house, I didn't use a realtor. But looking back on that, I'm glad it went well, and I'm glad I was a very assertive person. Otherwise, it would not have gone well. And let me give you some examples. I had a client a year or so ago where they bought a brand new build. They came in from out of town. They looked at, I showed them about 27 properties in 3 days, which is a lot. And the only reason I did that is because they're in from out of town. And in the end, they decided to go with a brand new build that was sitting right in front of them, completely done other than the landscaping. The house is there, the driveway was there. The only thing that wasn't there was the shrubs and the front yard that was supposed to be there. Unfortunately for them, they were going back home to sell that home, and then they were going to come back in a few weeks. Probably stay in an Airbnb for a week or so, and then move into the brand new home that was fully done. Right. Unfortunately for them, they came into town. The house was still there, and they were notified then that there was a little problem where the city of Colorado Springs would not give the builder a certificate of occupancy, allowing the owner to move in, or the new owner to move in. And the reason for that was because the utilities for the development were not complete per the request of the city. So the city was putting their foot down, saying you need to finish that the way we told you to, or we're not giving you any more certificates of occupancy. So that repair or install in this case took, I think, 6 to 8 more weeks. All right. And under the terms and conditions of the builder's contract that my buyer signed, the builder was not liable at all for anything, any additional expenses that the buyer incurred as a result of this 6 to 8 week delay. And in the end, having me with them and me being very assertive in this manner as well, I wrote a rather lengthy email to the builder saying, this is your fault. City told you about this and you didn't manage it properly, and you should totally compensate my buyers in an appropriate manner. And they did step up and do that. So that was great. But would you as the buyer know that you should do that? Would you as buyer know how to write that in a way that might be effective? Maybe, maybe not, right? Depends on your background and experience. But the home buying process, when you're using a new build, the first thing you really need to know is that the representatives in the model homes are there to help you and fully represent the buyer, or the builder, in every possible conceivable way. They are not there for your benefit, right? They are there to represent the builder and to make sure the builder gets what they want. They are a builder representative. Think of it like a car salesman. That is the house salesman, or salesman or saleswoman, however you want to put it. And they're there to try to make the builder as much money as possible, and also trying to help have a good experience and all the other things. But first and foremost is make sure the builder makes as much money as possible. And by you not bringing in a realtor, that definitely makes them more money. So they're not going to encourage you to bring a realtor and to be there on your behalf and know when to throw a flag in the play, man, and say, hey, wait, what are you doing? Time out here. Well, that's not normal for you to do that. What does a realtor do then, you might ask, with a new build, right? Why would you possibly need one? Well, I gave you a good example already, but what we also do is we go through and we take all the notes, right? So we sit with you every time you meet with a builder. or we should, the good realtors will, and take notes of all the decisions you made. Make sure all the decisions are documented properly, and so that you have documentation that you made this change or that change, and you wanted this window and that cabinet and this carpet and this flooring and the outlet over there and the light fixture over there. We make sure that in addition to the salesperson, we make sure that your interests are covered and documented properly. And then as you go through the process, we continually to bring those back up to make sure when we go through and the builder says, hey, you need to come out and do a walkthrough with us to make sure that all the outlets are where they're supposed to be that you wanted to add or whatever, then the realtor should bring their notes that they have and the documentation that they have from the builder and make sure that everything that you agreed to is there. You as the buyer, you're focused on all the pretty things and oh wow, it's a great new house and I can't wait to move in and it's a new neighborhood, first house ever, whatever it might be. You're not really thinking about the nuances, right? Or maybe as we walk through and we kind of see something myself, I might see something that's odd to me and I might ask you and the builder about that. Like, why is that like that? Protecting your interest as the buyer, not the builder's interest, right? Some of the other things that you need to be aware of and how they're different, all the contracts that you sign with a builder are 100% written in favor of the builder. Where in the state of Colorado, if you buy an existing home, all of the forms that we will use are written neutrally by the state of Colorado to protect the interests of both parties within reason. So there's no gotchas in there, right? No hidden clauses, no funny wording. And in new build contracts, they tend to be pretty good. The ones that I've read through and looked at for my own curiosity, tend to be pretty well written, but they are definitely written in favor of the builder, and they remove a lot of the really good things that are in the state contracts here in Colorado to protect you as the buyer. There's a whole lot less ways for you as the buyer to get out of that new build contract than there is in the existing home or Colorado state forms that are only used on existing homes. So another thing is how can I put this? The entire experience and how the builders want you to behave and experience the buying process, from the model home through the contracts to picking out the features and the upgrades and going to maybe the model home or the upgrade store and picking out what you want for your colors and finishes and knobs and all that. All of that is completely different, right? You don't do any of that on an existing home. You don't get to go pick out what kind of finishes you want, and colors of paint and shingles and all these things that you typically get to pick on a brand new home. So that's one other thing. Existing home, you get what you get. Nothing is new. You shouldn't expect anything to be perfect ever on an existing home, and even somewhat on a new home. They're still not perfect, to be honest, but they do give you the opportunity to inspect it a bunch of times and blue tape some stuff, and that's a process where you go around and you mark defects that you want corrected. And again, the contracts that the new build builder has kind of limits what you're able to blue tape all the way too. So you have to be aware of that. Also, and one of the big things that is kind of a negative is that because builders can use, by state law, can use their own contracts written by their attorneys, we as realtors cannot interpret them on your behalf. So despite all of our legal training and how to read contracts, real estate contracts, we are only authorized to review, approve, and advise you on state approved contracts. So not those that are written by the builder's attorneys. We can't do that. What we can do is direct you back to the builder's representative to explain the clause, which they should be trained by their attorney to do in a way. So they should be able to explain that contract to you completely and thoroughly. If you wanted a third party review, we can connect you with a real estate attorney that doesn't work for the builder. that can also explain those contracts to you to make sure that you will understand the situation completely, before you sign them, hopefully. The other thing is warranties. New builds typically have a warranty on the property for a year or maybe more, where you can call them back and say, hey, I found this defect, this piece of trim fell off. I've had a client before where the pipe, the water meter froze and the pipe broke and it flooded everything and they had to come back and fix everything. But those warranties are kind of interesting in that they're not typically run by the builder in all cases. Some of the builders outsource that to a local company, and you call them and then you coordinate and try to get the repair done in a reasonable way, in an aesthetic way, which I have seen some buyers really struggle with in some cases. That the third party representing the builder maybe isn't as responsive as they need to be, and maybe doesn't fix things the way that the buyer wanted them to fix it, because this is a brand new house, man. I want it back the way it was. That's a defect. So sometimes there's that little problem that comes up, and you should be aware of that when they say, oh, there's a home warranty or whatever they might call it, limited warranty. It's probably going to not meet your expectations, if I had to guess. And there are some builders though in town that are outstanding at that, and really make sure that you're taken care of, and they do their warranty work in-house. So those tend to be the bigger builders. They tend to be the more expensive homes, and the ones that have been in business a lot longer because they got burned too many times and didn't like their reviews that they got as a result of that. Let's see what else. New builds, you can buy them brand new. You can have to wait a while to get them. Let's say you sign the contracts, you might wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months before you're going to be able to close and move in. So you're going to sign the contracts. You're not going to pay for it yet. You're going to pay for the house, but you are committed. You are locked in, and a lot of times you have to take a deposit that in many cases is non-refundable, because they're building a custom home for you. You get to pick all the stuff. So there becomes a point at which your earnest money, your down payment is non-refundable, because this house is so customized for you and not for everybody that they might have a problem selling it. That's one of those fun clauses in the contracts that I mentioned earlier. So that's a risk. If you get 5, 6 months down the road and you can't close, that's a problem. You might lose that earnest money. Builders also tend to have in-house lenders that will give you fabulous rates, interest rates above and beyond what the conventional market is, or what you might hear about. And that can be good and bad. The interest rates are real, that they advertise. However, my experience with in-house lenders from builders, I shouldn't even say my experience as much as it is my client's experience, is not good. I had one client that said, I don't care what it costs, I will never, ever use an in-house lender again. Because of her experience with that. And it drove me crazy too, because I couldn't help her. That was her choice to take that as the in-house lender and go for the better rate. I mean, it was like 1.5% more or cheaper. So that's a lot when you look at the term of the loan and monthly payment. That's a big chunk of change. And but yeah, she was adamant that she'd never do that again because her experience was so bad with the in-house lender. And there's probably good in-house lenders out there too. I've just never seen one that's outstanding. Does a great job. What else? When you buy a new build, you got to expect that you're going to have dust and debris and stuff around your house. You might have a flat tire here and there because you got contractors running all over the neighborhood. Sometimes you might not be able to get to your house because there's a cement truck across the street. There's those problems. So there's always teething problems in developments. And I'm not trying to steer you away from a new build by any means, because some new builds are great opportunities. This is the beginning of 2024 when I'm doing this, and there's some awesome deals on brand new builds right now. So, if you're considering, buying a house, I would definitely look at a new build. New builds also tend to, unless it's a really, really custom house, and by that I mean you get to pick everything. Like you can move walls, you can change the window manufacturer, things like that. Most new builders that have model homes, that's probably a pretty key example. If they have a model home, you're not going to be able to customize everything. But you get to pick finishes. And if they do that, if they allow you to change finishes, that's great. On the custom home side, you get a lot more flexibility on what you can change and not change. But on the builders that have models, my experience is that the fit and finish of the homes and the quality of the items that the builder puts into the homes is typically less. It's the cheap stuff. Maybe a notch or so higher, especially on the appliances. Sometimes we'll tweak with the appliances because the appliances are really like a dead giveaway of, are these really nice appliances? Or are these kind of like make-believe fake stainless steel appliances? So you do have to be aware that the cabinets are really cheap. They'll last, for a while, but they might have some issues where they start, faces start falling off and stuff like that. So I always recommend to do pulls, doorknobs and pulls on all your cabinets, doors. If they don't do it, you should do it because it'll make your cabinets last longer. So be aware of that. But the model home builders, typically the stuff that they put in your home, the faucets are cheaper. They might be Hampton Bay, which they work. They look nice. They just don't last as long. Existing homes, if you can find an existing home that was owned by someone who really took care of it. I wish I could. There's one right over here I could point out behind my office over here that looks amazing. Like it's this guy. I'm sure the inside of this thing is immaculate because the outside of the house is immaculate in the way it's taken care of. So, those are some other differences between new builds and existing homes. Insurance sometimes is different. So you do want to check that out. Taxes, new builds are in Colorado nowadays are almost always in metro districts, something's called a metro district. I can't remember if I've done a video on that, but I really should. Metro districts are like a super HOA. So they can unilaterally control the monthly dues. It means you don't get to vote and they can still change it. And the reason for that is it's kind of almost like a micro government in where they're paying for infrastructure associated with getting the water utilities to the property, the roadways, the curbs. So they tend to be or have taxes that are much more expensive than an existing home in an older neighborhood. Pros and cons, right? New home, you get the open architecture. Older home, existing home, maybe not. So you kind of got to, figure out what works for you. Existing homes tend to have some of the existing homes in Colorado Springs have bigger yards than the new builds. So that's another thing. What else? Landscaping. Landscaping on an existing home is done. On a new build, sometimes you get the front yard, sometimes you get the front and the backyard, sometimes you get nothing. So that's another thing to consider. But those are a few things that I've just been thinking of and talking to my clients about when they're considering a new build, just trying to understand just how different they are, because they are vastly different in every way. I cannot understate that enough. And it's why I always recommend to my clients, bring a realtor. Let's say you buy a house for $500,000 and you bring a realtor to the deal. Does it make your house any more expensive because you brought a realtor? Almost in every case, no. It doesn't. The builder has the price of that house listed, typically speaking, paying the buyer's agent. And if you choose not to bring a buyer's agent unless you ask and negotiate it, you're probably not going to get a price break because you didn't bring anybody with you. So why wouldn't you bring a realtor with you? Why wouldn't you? If you go to court, you want to bring an attorney with you to represent you and your wishes and your goals. We're similar. Our realtor is similar to that. And that why wouldn't you bring us to every meeting, every phone call to make sure we are fully locked in on what you need and tracking your goals and fighting for what you want. So you don't have to do that. So Just some thoughts. I thought it'd be cool to do a quick video on that. If you have any questions about this or anything else regarding real estate, let me know. You can see my website back there, homestead719.com. You can reach me at 719-212-4911. If this is the first video you've watched with us, look at some other ones. We've got a bunch for sellers, bunch for buyers, bunch for investors, and we do all that kind of fun stuff. So take a look at some of those. You'll probably learn a few more things. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye now.